Hello, and welcome back to the Power of Words podcast. I'm really happy to be here today with Ryan Taerk, who is a Canadian actor. He is best known for his work on the Primetime Emmy Award-nominated series Star Trek. How fun. Ryan is also known for his series regular role as Boris McDougald on the Canadian Screen Award series The Communist Daughter. Ryan is also a published songwriter and musician. He closely works with his brothers and writing partners Josh and Matt Taerk to create new music. I can't wait to talk about new music. Their recent international tours have culminated into Milestones as their co-written song Beautiful Tragedy broke the Billboard Top 40 Pop Indicator chart at number 38, as well as their newest releases Hold On Virginia and I'm Here, collectively being streamed over 2 million times and counting on Spotify and Apple Music. Amazing, Ryan.
Thank you.
Is currently co-creating and developing various projects for both television, film, and looks forward to sharing announcements on those new projects shortly. Welcome, Ryan, to the Power of Words podcast. And how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. This is really special.
And welcome to LA as well.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Sorry about the rain. It's better than Canada, though.
You know what? I'll exchange the rain for like the feet of snow that we have back home. So very happy to be here.
Yeah. And I know this is an exciting time for you and you're here on work. So
Yes.
I'd love to talk about that. But let's talk about your career in acting. And you started really young. So
I did.
How did that happen?
So when I started acting, it was very innocent. I always loved playing pretend and sort of creating characters and doing shows with my siblings in like our parents' basement. And when I was younger at school, I was always a very creative kid. And, I was bullied in school, and at recess, that was kind of a thing. And acting sort of became a very good friend of mine in the sense that I would sort of become a different character and be able to step into a different personality to sort of escape almost the reality of the bullying or whatever was happening on the playground. And over time, as unfortunate as that circumstance was, it really was a fun thing to be able to create new characters and sort of stretch that muscle out. And over time, being able to create characters and tell stories and really connect with people in that way was very exciting and a very fun thing that I always loved to do. And I eventually started to do school plays and things like that. And I went to my parents at a very young age and I said, is that a job? And they were like, is what a job? I was like, well, is playing characters, is that a job? And they were like, well, yeah, it's called being an actor. And I said, oh, okay. Can you make money being an actor? And they were like, oh, well, yeah, you can. You just have to work really hard. And I said, okay, that's a good place to start. We have to work really hard. So from there, I was at that time probably 9 or 10 years old. I started going to acting class and started working on my craft, and I started working as an actor. It was a very, serendipitous, fun thing. It's wonderful.
And we in LA are in such a great city for that type of career, and so
Yes.
many kids start young. What was that journey like for you as a young actor? Because you have a ton of kids. We live in Hollywood, so
Sure.
everyone wants to be an actor.
Yeah.
And, we face a lot of rejection. And I'm wondering, did you ever have to deal with that? And how did that work for you?
That's a really good question. I think, well, for me, in my experience, being able to lean on my family, I have an incredible support system even to this day. My parents are the best people that I know. I'm very grateful for my mom and dad.
That is a beautiful thing to hear you say.
I love my parents and my siblings. They're wonderful. And because I started very young, as I was learning how to be in the business, so was my family. And no one in my family up at that point, no one was in the entertainment business. So learning about auditions and the process of the like auditions, callbacks, all of that stuff, you know, that was it was a steep learning curve at first. But I gotta say that I think the only reason that I'm still doing it to this day with the same amount of love that I had for it at the beginning is because I had such a strong support system with my parents and my siblings at the beginning.
Yeah, because it's a tough road because you can only take, and it's not easy on parents either,
Sure.
taking kids to auditions. Did you audition only in Canada or were you coming over to the US as well?
So at the beginning, I was auditioning a lot in Canada. I had an agent back home, and they were wonderful, and there were so many opportunities, and the business has sort of gone in waves, and with so much production happening in Canada now, with Netflix and Amazon and Disney, all these studios that are coming up north and shooting up there. There's been so much opportunity. At that time, when I started, there was opportunity, but it wasn't as fruitful as it is now. So we're very grateful for that. But at that time, yeah, I was coming out here for a little bit to meet with managers and agents out here, but my main representation and work was coming from Canada.
What was your first audition like, and what were the emotions you went through?
I actually had to sort of think about that for a second. I was like, what was the first audition? I remember my first professional audition was actually on my birthday. It was on my 11th birthday. I remember this because my parents and I had planned to go out for lunch on my birthday, and then we got told, oh, you have an audition. So we had to modify these plans, and I was so excited for this audition. It was for this new comedy show at the time, and it was so wonderful. And the casting directors, they were Susan and Sharon Forrest, the Forrest sisters. They're incredible casting directors back in Canada, and they were so lovely and generous with their time. This was my first audition ever, so they were so... I think they could see there was a young actor that was so new, but also very excited to be there and to participate in this process. And yeah, it really was such a warm welcome into being, as I was sort of seeing it at the time, I'm officially in the business per se. So
yeah, when you do your first audition, you're
Yeah.
officially in the business. Was that a winner for you, or?
that particular audition, I did not book that role, no. But in terms of how I felt about the work that I did, I was so happy with what I did, and that process. I remember, I remember rehearsing with my mom and my dad just to get the lines and to get the character right. Over the course, I found out about this on I don't know, I guess a Wednesday, and the audition was on a Friday. And I remember that in those 2 days in between, just really enjoying myself and being equal parts nervous because this was the first time I was going to do something, and it felt like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And at the same time, being so excited that I was in it and being able to participate,
That's wonderful that the excitement, I guess when you're that new, the excitement stays, but it is such an overcrowded industry.
Sure.
And I'm looking at it today.
Yeah.
And people come into LA from all over the world and audition all the time. And I'm just curious about the journey. So how many auditions before you landed your first role? And what was that journey like?
How many auditions? I don't know if I have the official number, but I can say I would say close to 100 auditions before the first yes. I remember the first role that I booked, it was for a short film. And this particular character, it was a comedy. I love comedy. So it was so fun to be able to participate in that. At the same time, some of the material was a little bit more mature. When I was younger, I looked older than my age, funny enough. So the character that I was playing and the subject matter was a little bit more mature than I was sort of made aware of or at that time in my life. So I definitely learned a lot from just the content of the script, but it was a great experience being able to be on set and whatnot. And I remember that time. It's just so exciting because I was in it. I was filming a thing. It was great, you know.
You'd actually gotten there. So
Yeah.
you were now officially.
Yes,
Officially.
Yeah, I was a
an
working actor because of that
beautiful.
experience. It was wonderful.
I asked that question because so many people go to 5 auditions and 10 auditions and are not as lucky to have parents that are available to take them to the auditions all the time. And, it's just the emotional journey that you go through must be so hard.
Sure. It definitely, even if it's not your parents as the specific support system, I feel like being in this kind of a business, you do create a community of people and a support system, whether they be blood or your chosen family, so to speak. And it's really wonderful, the kinds of people that you meet, because I think when you enter something like this and you understand from the people before you and just the stories that you've heard that, it could be a long road. It could be something where, you might face more rejection than not. But being able to have such a support system or a community around you and being able to foster that kind of connection and being vulnerable enough to show, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, or I'm in a time where I'm feeling like nothing is going my way. Being able to have those connections with people and at the same time being able to celebrate with those same people when it does go your way and when things are, the most joyous they can be for you.
Yeah.
I think that this particular business opens itself up to creating those kinds of connections with people, which is really special.
I hope so, because, I love to hear that there is a community and a supportive community, because rejection is not easy to deal with.
Sure, yeah.
And to be able to show that you're disappointed at not being, it's being able to share that vulnerability, right? That it didn't work.
Sure.
I mean, how many times have I been to, one of the trade shows and wanted to sell a store and they didn't pick me up. And we tend to camouflage that disappointment and make excuses for ourselves about the way things are going. But I think you get stronger from having that support of a community that can say to you, don't worry about it, do better next time, or it's just not meant for you at this point in time. Because I do believe more than acting, more than in fashion, I don't know whether I can say more than in fashion as a designer, but more than in fashion, acting is much more personal when you're dealing with emotions like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I wonder, because I'm, as much as I know about fashion, I'm sitting with someone that has had quite a lot of success in that industry. What is the process? Because as an actor, I understand what the process is of getting an audition, working through it to the point where if you're able to book the job, great. What is the process when you're starting out in the fashion industry to be able to get to a point where, a store is carrying your line up until having your own store? What is that process like?
I love that you asked me that question. No one's ever asked me that. But it's a long way to getting into a store. But it really starts, I think, any design process starts with an idea, an inspiration, something that's inspired you. I've always been inspired by 18th century art and architecture, and so my collections were built on that. But it's coming up with an idea. But as a designer, I always look at things long term. If I'm going to design something, what's the story? Everything I do has to have a story, whether it's a piece of metal or whether it's the color or whether it's all about the story that builds the product.
Amazing.
And then how is this product going to evolve in 5 years? What's this going to look like? To me, it's not designing this bag and next season it's going to be something else, and it's going to be, this has to have a life. It has to tell a story. It has my signature to it. So once you've designed once you have an idea of what you want to do, then you go out and source people that are going to manufacture it for you. And then that's when the process really begins. What do you do next? The designing process is beautiful. The sampling process is even more beautiful because you get to see something come to life.
Sure.
And then eventually you go to market, and that has been the trickiest for most designers. That's a make it or break it. And like acting, you have to go back over and over again. And, 1 in a million is really successful.
Sure.
So it's being resilient and being able to say, I'm going to go back and try it again. But also, it's a very financially committed industry.
Sure, absolutely.
So in acting, you're committing your time, and everyone around you. In fashion, your collection has to evolve. So if you don't meet the numbers, then you've just got to come up with the finance. It's a tough industry.
Sure.
To be in. But then when you do end up, being in your first store, that's a winner.
Absolutely.
And it's everything. And then you go to trade shows and meet people, and you get inspired, and it goes on from there.
What is it like cultivating that kind of a community or support system within the fashion industry? Because I understand in the entertainment business, there is a support system, but as you go along, people come in and out of the business, and it's wonderful if they're around. It's also wonderful if they choose to go down a different path. You still have that connection with them.
Yeah.
But you might not be doing the same things anymore. With you coming up in the fashion industry and having that experience up until today, what has that been like to foster those relationships?
I think as a designer, you foster relationships with your sales team and amazing relationships with your production team. It is rare that designers, because there's so much secrecy, and you have to be so protective about what you're building.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's no trust, and it's hard to build those relationships because you're all going for the same buyer to sell to the same store.
Yeah.
And I have to say that you do end up making friends with designers much later in life.
Sure.
It's all about maturity. When you're young, there's so much, you're being so protective, and you're afraid.
Of course.
So it's a different vibe. But once you're mature, and once you've had the confidence, and once you've placed yourself, it's easier for you to communicate with other designers. But your support system really is your sales team. I have relationships still have relationships with the people that gave me my first opportunity in manufacturing.
That's wonderful. That
taught me so much, and they've worked with, Chanel when I want to say, in the 50s and 60s, even before I was born. So it's amazing to have those kind of relationships and those kind of mentors in the industry. So you build different relationships, unlike you build relationships with actors.
Sure.
I don't think we build relationships with designers as much. However, I have to say that I have built relationships with designers that are not in exactly the same field as me, where we can become really close friends.
Interesting. What do you mean by that? Designers in other fields.
When I showed in Paris, I was showing accessories and bags.
Sure.
But and there were designers that had beautiful haute couture evening gowns. So those are the people you bond with. Those are the people.
Interesting.
And even though it's still competitive because you're all making beautiful product.
Right.
But handbag designer to handbag designer, I have to be honest, it took me a lot of maturity to get to a stage, and took them a lot of maturity to get to a stage where we could actually be real friends.
That's wonderful. I really appreciate you being so open to that kind of a question, because I do recognize, I think, you mentioning there's a certain amount of maturity that comes into play, especially and confidence when when you're coming up in a business, no matter what the business is, because, you know, from as creative a business as fashion or acting or all the way into the finance sector or law, you know, if people look at it from the competition aspect, it's hard to collaborate. It's hard to create that kind of a connection because there's defenses and it's hard to be vulnerable in that kind of a state. But when you're able to open up, I really do appreciate how vulnerable you were just sharing that, because I recognize, you know, my own sort of experience in that story, in your story there. So thank you.
You know, and now when I think back in hindsight, right, what I'm doing now and what I'm like preaching now, I want to say, and talking about so much,
Right.
is that if I was reminded of, like I want people to remember now, but if I was reminded of it then, Deb, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And my other designer friends, if we understood this from the very beginning, from the
Sure.
ground up, you're exactly where you're meant to be. What's meant for you will come to you and no one can
Yes.
take it away. So
Yes.
you're not thinking about that. Right? When you're standing side by side with another designer and
Absolutely.
you look at their collection, and then if you're at the same factory, it's like, oh my God, you know?
For sure, for sure. But it's interesting. There is a certain amount of, I don't know if it's faith or knowingness in something greater than yourself, that there's a plan that is out at play and you're a part of it. And, you know, whether you believe in manifesting or you believe, you know, the universe, God, whatever have you, you know, in what you believe in, but believing that there's something greater that's sort of like placing you in different moments, and whether the outcome in present time is one that you would have chosen to want or not what you had wanted, they really are beautiful building blocks to something greater. It's just might not be right there in front of you in that moment. So.
You don't see it then.
Yeah.
And also being completely unique in what you do. I think that is what, like when I saw designers that I really admired, and their work was very unique and very distinct, and I had to be really unique and really distinct. And that is what makes you realize it's when people look at something, they have to say that's a Deborah Sawaf, or that looks like Deborah Sawaf.
Sure.
That's when you know, you've made your mark.
For sure.
And I'm sure that's somewhat with acting as well, right?
I was just going to say, there's something to be said about, you know, the way that an actor, being able to approach a character, every character is different. And when you're able to play such a vast range of characters, that's wonderful. But there is almost a certain way, if I look at some of my favorite actors, the way that they approach a character and the way that they go about it, it's really interesting because you can tell, oh, they have their stamp of, you know, this actor versus that actor on those roles, which is really interesting. So
who would you say one of those actors are?
Ooh,
You probably have a bunch.
well, there are so many actors that I admire in terms of their work and just their work ethic. But, you know, I look at oh gosh, I'm going blank on names, but I look up to so many actors. Jack Nicholson, incredible actor. Incredible actor. Chinatown is one of my favorite movies. I saw it for the first time, actually, I want to say within the last year and a half. And I look at that film and the way he portrayed his character. And then I look at films that were a little bit closer to my time. And even though they're completely different stories and completely different characters, you go, oh, that's Jack, you know? And so that's something that's really cool about that, you know, that artist, you know, having their stamp of this is who I am, this is what I bring to this creative idea, you know?
Like, Robert De Niro. I love how with all these new TV shows and TV series that these actors are coming back in really strong roles. That's really beautiful to see.
Yeah, there's some, with all the streaming services. Oh my gosh, there's so much production and so many different shows and films that are coming out. And they really do give a whole range of actors, no matter if you've been working for 60 years to the newest of actor an opportunity, and that's really wonderful that there's such a wide range
Yeah.
of productions out there now.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So let's talk about Star Trek. What was that journey like?
That was it was really cool. I got an audition for a show that had a code name. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say what the code name is for the show, but I didn't know I was auditioning for Star Trek at the time.
Oh, so they don't actually. This is new to me.
They didn't tell me.
So if you're auditioning for something, you don't know what you're auditioning for.
No, I got
I learn
an
something
email
new every
from
day.
my agent, and they sent me an email saying, there's this new show. Would you be interested in this character? And I read the breakdown. It was a very short breakdown, and I was like, sounds cool. I'll try. Why not? And as I was reading it, I sort of had this idea. I was like, this character kind of reminds me of Spock. And that was the thought that I had about it. And so I did it thinking about Spock and how he would go about saying these lines. And I want to say I submitted the audition. This was a self-tape. This was during COVID, so there were no in-person auditions. It was all on Zoom or self-tape. And I sent in this tape, and within 48 hours, I got a call from Star Trek Strange New Worlds, from a producer on the show, saying, welcome aboard. And I went, I didn't audition for Star Trek. And I was like, oh, that's what, and they explained that this is what you did. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. So yeah, it was a very exciting moment because, my dad and my, uncles and aunts, they grew up watching Star Trek. My mom wasn't as much of a Star Trek fan growing up, but my dad and even some of the people my dad worked with were huge Star Trek fans. And so you
were a big celebrity.
So when I got to share, because I wasn't allowed to say that I had done this or I had auditioned or shot it or anything like that for a while. And when I was able to share that, it was like, the reaction was, whoa,
you're a big
like
deal.
Star Trek? And I was like, yeah. It was very exciting. It was a really fun time, and everyone on the set was incredible. The director, Jordan Canning, she's amazing and was wonderful and so sweet. And literally everybody on that show, from the costumers to hair and makeup prosthetics, everybody works so hard on that show and so passionately because they know that they're helping tell this story and carrying forward this legacy of a show. So it's
amazing
really
show.
Yeah.
What an amazing show.
Very cool.
What took you down the path of music? Because you transitioned from acting.
Well,
to music.
So I've always loved music. I started off in musical theater, so being able to sing and play instruments, that was something that I always loved. My siblings and I, growing up, we were big boy band fans. I'm one of 5 kids, so there's 4 boys and a girl. And before we had our sister, we were NSYNC was very popular at the time, and Backstreet Boys, they were very popular at the time.
Big deal.
And
very popular for me. That's a big going down memory lane.
Yeah.
For me.
So at the time, our goal, I'm pretty sure, my siblings and I, was we wanted to be NSYNC. That was our, that was the thing. Excuse me. And so we loved singing together and just playing music together. We learned instruments. We started to jam. And that was really a wonderful, exciting thing. My brother Josh, he got into songwriting and he became a singer-songwriter. And he's done very well for himself. And it's really cool that we just, as his siblings, we've been able to watch him and his songwriting evolve. And I fell into songwriting kind of by accident. I was working at a summer camp as a counselor, and I met a girl that this was the first time that I had met someone that I was so excited about and very, very infatuated with. And so I didn't know at the age how to communicate my feelings. But I did know that I wanted to creatively communicate them. So I wrote a draft of what ended up becoming a song that Josh and I would co-write together. And Josh came home from a tour in the UK that day, and he was 2 seconds in the house. And I came up to him with my phone. I had written this song on my phone, and I said, "Here, we gotta do something with this." And he read it, and within like an hour or two, we had a song, and it was called "Take a Chance with Me." It was on his second record, I believe. And yeah, that was the first sort of full song that we had written together. And from there, I just started singing more and doing background vocals on his albums, and we started writing more together, and I ended up being able to go on tour with him through Canada and the States and even in the UK, which was so cool, being able to go overseas and meet his fans and see what he does over there. Because as his younger brother, I've heard these stories and it's wonderful, and my dad at the beginning of his career went over there a lot with him, and so I would hear these stories of the shows that he would do and all of that, and getting the opportunity to actually go, being a part of it was so special because I'm with my brother and that's so fun. But to be able to see it and just be genuinely so happy for him and to see what was happening for him over there, it was really cool. Like, it was such a cool experience. It was very wonderful, very, very humbling experience for sure.
I love this bond that you have with your family and how close, how close-knit you are. Family that lives together, works together, plays together, prays together.
For sure.
There's such a beautiful, and there's also a calmness in it, I think, because not a lot of families have that.
I will say my parents, from day one with all of us, respect was the number one rule. You can disagree, and that's important. But to be able to have a conversation about it and to show respect, you don't have to like what the person's saying, but you need to be able to respect the person and show the person respect. And at the end of the day, from my parents' experiences with their own individual families, they cultivated an understanding of what they wanted to do with their own family.
How you want to raise
I'm
kids,
very grateful, whether their experiences in their own individual families were not, in my opinion, so ideal. I wouldn't have chosen or liked those experiences, but I'm grateful that they went through those experiences because they cultivated a family and a foundation for my generation of their bloodline that is so close and so collaborative. And I love being able to, as you said, work, live, pray, eat together with that community of people.
Yeah.
So it's very special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a famous quote, right? The family that prays together stays together. So I like to add the work, play, pray, because my husband comes from a very big family, and it's exactly that. And
it's wonderful.
It's very unique and very unusual. And yes, you're right. Sometimes in the face of adversity, you grow and you learn. And so for everything, this was the reason for them to have gone through what they went through in their point in time.
For sure.
I love that we can actually, show that in examples, in real life examples, that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it's really such a wonderful thing. And, when you're able to have that hindsight or that space, when you're able to accept what has happened or what you've experienced, whether you liked it or not, that level of acceptance, you're able to move forward in your life, and you sort of opportunities or just experiences and awareness or understanding for yourself just becomes so open.
Yeah.
And there's just a world of possibilities that come from that, which is lovely.
That's amazing. Let's talk about what we connected on.
Yes.
And that was completely coincidental.
Oh
and
my gosh.
That is why you're here today. And I generally have people on the podcast, I mean, I should, maybe open it up a bit more. But to me, I really want to see what the connection is. First, it's just, you're meant to be where you're meant to be. And then you connect on a certain conversation. And then it's like we've known each other for a long time, but we really haven't.
It's true.
Because there's always something people that are, meant to connect on.
Yeah.
And I think randomly the word was emotional intelligence.
We became instant friends very quickly. When I think I asked you what, or we were at this restaurant. I was sitting at a table beside yours, and you were with your family, and I was with my girlfriend and our dear friends. And
thanks to Sophia, actually.
Yeah, Sophia Wardy.
Earlier that day. So Sophia, shout out to you. Thank you.
God bless her.
We have
She's
Ryan
amazing.
in the studio today.
She's the absolute best and greatest family member and mentor that I've ever had in my life. I love her. And when you two started speaking and they had to leave a little early, you had mentioned that you were working in fashion, and then you spoke about how you have a new venture in emotional intelligence. And I just stopped. I was like, whoa, let's rewind that. You have a venture in emotional intelligence. That just, the world of possibilities of where and what you were doing just was very exciting, very interesting, because to be able to dive deep into one's understanding of emotional intelligence, because we all build these walls and defense mechanisms to hide from vulnerability. And I get it, because I've had to work through my own. Everybody does.
Yes.
So when you said that, I was just so intrigued as to what that meant, why, and the impact. I wanted to understand, because from what I do understand and know of the work that you're doing with the power of words, it's so incredible, and the impact that you're having on the conversation of emotional intelligence. It's really changing that paradigm, which is really cool. But yeah, it was in emotional intelligence that made me stop and go, oh, this is interesting. And you gave me this, which is, I wear this every day because it's such a great reminder of the magic that we have within ourselves. It inspires other people to find their own magic, but it's this bracelet is such a great anchor, because it reminds me to remember the power of what is emanating from within me, to be able to serve myself so that I can be able to serve others in a powerful way. And that's a really, when you gave me this, it was really so special, and I cherish it because it's such an exciting thing. And when people ask me, what's magic? What does it mean? I was like, have you heard of the power of words? And so I feel like I'm
You're the spokesperson.
I feel like I'm a bit of a billboard for it now, because I'm very excited about it. It's very cool. It's very cool that you're cultivating such an interesting conversation it's a global community. It's not just, it's not, a small group of people. It's the global family. And that's a really beautiful thing. No matter what walk of life you're from, this is something that everyone can digest and everyone can understand, if they're wanting to. And I think it's a beautiful thing that there's something out there that is giving them the tools to learn it and understand it.
And you said the right word, tools. You can do as much and give human beings and kids especially as much in theory, and they study it, they learn it, they do their exam, and they move on. But they need the daily tools. We as human beings need daily reminders. I mean, everybody teaches us to be kind and be patient and be compassionate.
Right.
But we need the reminders as human beings.
Yeah.
And for us as a team that teaches emotional intelligence, we need our reminders. And I will have Anastasia say to me sometimes, Deb, are you wearing your bands? You need to go put on your bands.
Sure, yeah.
Right? When I'm having a hard day, especially. And it might be the fact that I haven't focused on what I need to accomplish and how I need to go about my day. So, it's just the way we do it. We say it's practice leads to prevention, and it's one day at a time.
Sure.
It's living life one day at a time. I also, I'm a big believer in, and when you talk about magic, leave your magic in every room that you walk out of, because you never know if you'll ever come back.
Sure.
Andy's asking me to wind up. Okay, I'm getting eyes a lot these days.
We're just having so much fun. It's good.
I mean, we're just having a casual conversation, which is what I wanted it to be.
It's wonderful.
Okay, so tell me, what's, I always say dream big. What is the big dream for you?
The big dream, in terms of, I have many dreams. I have many big dreams. In terms of work, I would love to continue being able to create different characters and tell very compelling stories and connecting with people in a very meaningful way. Because I love comedy, highlighting some of the absurdities of life and bringing it to light in a light-hearted way. I feel like that is so important. I think laughter is one of the greatest medicines.
Absolutely.
And
I so agree with you on that.
It's something that I would love to, if I'm able to make people laugh and connect with them and make them feel better on a daily basis, then I feel like I'm thrilled with being able to be part of that conversation, and I feel very grateful to be able to do that. In terms of, being able to, I'm so excited. My siblings and I were in the process of creating many different projects, and I'm very excited to see where those go, and we'll have news on them very shortly. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say much right now about it, but I'm very excited for what is to come, and it'll hopefully be very shortly. So yeah, I'm excited for the possibilities of what's to come, and so grateful for this moment. But I think outside of work, being able to be part of cultivating a greater conversation of unity and oneness, even though everyone's going through a different experience, being able to be part of a conversation of vulnerability and bringing people together, even though they're experiencing specific things differently, it's still, maybe they're needing a reminder to understand that they need to recognize their magic, remember their resilience, and in the process of helping themselves, being able to help others. Because that's, I think, a really beautiful passing it forward,
There's, the way you say that, there's a really important, a beautiful quote by Mother Teresa, and she said she always prayed to God to help her change the world. And then she realized much later that she had to change the way she was thinking, and she said God wasn't going to change the world. Then she prayed to God to change her so she could change the world. So you have to work on yourself and work on the inside. And it was absolutely lovely to have you. Great to have you in LA. And we're hoping you will be our new role model in Canada.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me on the Power of Words podcast. I'm so happy that we got to do this. And yeah, just thank you for everything. You're wonderful.
Good luck, and may all your dreams come true.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Ryan.